everyone, welcome back to the channel and to Speaking Saturdays. Today I have a fresh new set of questions for you, so let's get started. Are there many forests in your country? There's a ton of forests, but there is a bit of an issue because a lot of forests are being cut down. I think the center of the country practically is just raw forest land, but there's also specific sections like in the northeast, there's a lot of forests. And funnily enough, right in my city, like just like I think 3 or 4 kilometers away from me right now, there's this huge wild tropical forest area. They call it a national park, but it's really just a wild forest, and there's tons of animals like you've got tigers, you've got lions, there's deer, there's crocodiles and stuff like that as well, I've heard. So yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, the ones that are huge, like super big in the center of the country, I haven't really been there yet, but I hear that it's a really amazing place. What kind of threats are posed by deforestation? So I think one of the issues, of course, is the loss of forest cover can bring about climate change. That's obviously something that we are dealing with right now. We are, facing all the repercussions, but also it causes a lot of habitat loss for all these wild animals that depend on these areas. And so, you've got less forest cover, there's less, hunting grounds, for example. And of course, all of that can lead to them being endangered, or, for endangered animals to end up becoming extinct. That is a real problem that we are grappling with. So it's not some, far off thing that, oh, one day there'll be a problem. No, we are seeing these issues now, like literally right now. Are there alternatives to cutting down forests? This really depends. Like, really, for let's take Japan for example. This place is highly mountainous. They also do have a lot of forests, but at the same time, they don't have much land area, and they have a really, large population. And so many countries have, the issues like that. And then what do you really do? I mean, people need land, and it's not just land for living, but also you need land for agriculture, you need land for building industries, factories, all of these things. So it's kind of tough. I don't personally see a way out because, right now we have what, 8 billion people on the planet? And a lot of, all this pressure on the planet, because what are you going to do? In my country, there's, I think, 1.5 billion people. Where are you going to put all these people? They need land to live, but not just to live on, but also to live off, right? Because agriculture, you need flat land. You can't grow crops in the jungle. So what are you going to do? It's really depressing to think about it because, of course, chopping down forests doesn't just mean that, oh, we've lost forest cover, but it has a lot of ramifications as well. So I'm hoping that, people will find a way to coexist peacefully without causing any more damage to the planet. What can the average citizen do to help deal with this situation? So, first off, I just like to, make it clear that I don't think that the individual, person really can do much. All of us together, of course, can do a lot, but at the end of the day, take, for example, the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. That happened, I think, 10, 15 years ago. I didn't do that. A company did that. And it's really these oil and gas companies and other major, multinational conglomerates that are causing a lot of damage to the planet. So I feel like it's wrong to say, hey, you need to stop, wearing polyester. Hey, you need to stop using plastic straws. Like, it's, all of that blame, all that guilt. I personally am not a fan of it, but I do think that all of us individually do have a responsibility to the environment because, come on, look at the earth. It's such a beautiful planet. It's the only planet that can support life. So we need to do what we can. If you can cut down on your use of plastic, use metal or glass instead, do what you can afford to do, right? Because not everyone can. Plastic is obviously ubiquitous. It's cheap. So it's kind of like you shouldn't, be too hoity-toity about it, you know what I mean? Because people always say, oh, don't buy fast fashion, buy linen, buy cotton, but linen is expensive. Not everyone can afford it. If you can, that's great, but for most people, that's just not going to be the case. So let's, encourage people and not demotivate and insult them. Everybody can do their own bit. I, for example, try to avoid using plastic as much as I can. I buy metal or glass. And of course, sometimes you really don't have an option. But, when you think, for example, okay, when I order something, do I really need it? Am I just contributing to more waste? Can I repair things? Can I recycle things? That always helps. Great, now let's go on to part two. Part two, talk about a person whom you know well who came up with a new idea or invention. Please tell me, who is this person? Where and when did you meet them? What was his or her idea or invention? And explain how you felt about this person. So, a lot of people might look at this question and think, "Oh my God, an invention! I don't know any engineers or scientists or something like that." But they don't necessarily mean that kind of invention. It can be anything. It can a new idea or invention. That's very, very broad. Okay, it can even be a new recipe or a new way of doing things. It can be, for example, a new workout regime. It can be some kind of contraption that we use in our everyday life. Could be anything. So don't stress out. Don't worry. Take it as you will. Anything that's new, anything that somebody in your circle, somebody in your life, something that they created that was a little bit different, that was basically new. So, if you've watched other videos of mine, I never take the time to prepare. I just go on all out. So that's what I'm going to do. Right. So, a little bit of a backstory first. So I help out in my neighborhood. I feed stray dogs and cats, and I also help to get them neutered, sterilized, vaccinated, all that good stuff. So I came in contact with this woman. She runs an organization, an NGO, nonprofit organization that helps to do the same thing, vaccinate and sterilize stray dogs and cats. And I kind of had an emergency situation with a few dogs in my area. I think they were like in their cycle, so they were just about to like start breeding. I didn't want that, and so she helped me out, and that was really great. So obviously, we got to talking, and I added her on Facebook and stuff, and so I could see all the updates of the organization. And so she had this. So she lives in a different neighborhood. I live in a different neighborhood, like a different part of the city. But in her neighborhood, which is quite large, it's quite populous as well. She had this idea of, because in my city, we have like a 3-month, 4-month period where it rains a lot, and obviously, what are the stray animals gonna do? So she came up with this idea of building like on every street, not really the corner, but like in specific designated areas where people were, okay with it. She came up with the idea to create temporary accommodation for all these dogs and cats with the use of thermocol and some kind of insulating foam. I don't know exactly what it's like, this thing that they use, PU foam, I think that's what it is. And good old brick and cement. But like I said, these were temporary structures, not permanent ones. So if you, like, let's say for whatever reason, if somebody didn't want those structures, it was super easy to just take a hammer and smash the entire thing. Also, of course, it makes it easy to repair such a thing. So she's in conjunction with other people who live in the neighborhood, she's managed to build, I think 80 or 90 of these structures. And so a lot of the neighborhood cats and dogs, they can get shelter there. So I think that's fantastic. And I've also been trying to, because this is like a little bit complicated. You can't just go and build anything anywhere, right? You need people's permission, and the shops and the buildings and all these, of course you've got to get their permission, see if they're okay with it, because sometimes people are not okay with it. So in that case, you can't set up the structure in that area, but you can always check other areas. So yeah, I think that's just fantastic, and that's exactly what we need, because where are these animals gonna go? They don't have a home or anything, right? And shelters, obviously they have limited capacity. It's not possible to take in every single cat or dog. So that's the second best thing, and I think it's great. It's fantastic. Okay, let's go on to part 3. Let me see. There we go. Okay. How can people make new discoveries or inventions? This, well, it depends. Not everyone is wired that way. So I feel like the idea that how can everyone do this? It depends. It obviously depends from person to person. Not everyone is, super creative or inventive. But you know what they say, necessity is the mother of invention or creation. I find that that's so true. For example, we had this issue with our door. One of our doors was kind of getting stuck. It wouldn't close properly. And so obviously you'd have to call a carpenter, but we kind of had an emergency and, it was kind of late. So I just took a knife to the door and, kind of whittled away at the wood. And it worked beautifully. It worked just like the tool the carpenters have, except of course it was a knife. So yeah, that goes to show you, that when you, as a human being, I do think that creativity is something that's in all of us. But for whatever reason, in the modern world, we don't really foster, nurture that creativity. So it stays, hidden. But yeah, when you're put in a tough situation or something where, you really have to rack your brain, that's when that creativity really kind of rises to the fore and you find new ways of doing things. Like a couple years ago, when online teaching was not really popular, of course, I didn't come up with online teaching, but I figured, hey, I want to do this and I want to do it online. And I don't like commuting, for example. So I came up with, okay, why not try it this way? And a lot of people were like, no, that's not going to work. Teaching is, you have to do it face to face and, in person. But I was adamant that, hey, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it my way. So yeah, I think the key to making a new discovery really is to be put in a position where you really need to kind of think, how am I going to, get out of the situation or improve a situation if it's a bad one? How do you come up with innovations? So, well, I do think that I'm a fairly creative person. When you consider the traditional meaning as well, just inventive, but also like when you consider, for example, making music or something, I have some kind of note running in my head all the time. So that's that. But like, I don't know. I think ideas sometimes just come. It's like sometimes, like when I'm sleeping and I'm dreaming, I get an idea in my mind. I know it sounds crazy, but that has happened a few times. Then I wake up and I'm like, oh my god, that's it, that's a solution. So I don't know, maybe that's just how the brain works, but that's how it is. It's been for me a couple times. That has helped. But otherwise, I find that talking to other people also helps. If you're trying to, because you know what they say, two heads are better than one, right? So sometimes you're in a tricky situation and you think, oh, how am I going to fix this? Or how am I going to solve this? Or you think, what should I do? And so, somebody else comes in with a fresh new perspective. So that really helps. Fresh perspectives, a good amount of rest, because just overthinking or, overtaxing your brain, I don't think that works. You need time away. And I also find that if I'm, doing some kind of creative activity, like maybe just, like I said, creating music or something, or possibly writing poetry or something, that really helps. For some reason, I don't know, maybe it does something in the brain, like doing some kind of rewiring. And then you think, I could do things this way. So yeah, I think that helps. At what age do teenagers learn to form their own opinions and make decisions? I do think that, I mean, kids are pretty opinionated. It's just that, we, as a society, we condition them into not always, saying what they feel, right? So it's kind of like hidden in an effort to be more polite or just to be conscious of society's rules. But obviously, when you're like 12, 13, 14, you're just, getting into that age, you're starting puberty, you start to feel like, hey, I'm not a kid anymore. At the same time, you're not an adult, but you're like in that weird, period of time. And obviously, emotions and tempers and hormones are running high, and they feel like, I really need to express myself. I need to be taken seriously. But everybody thinks I'm stupid, right? Because that's what we think of teenagers. Oh, they're not kids, but they technically are kids, even though they're in that weird time zone, space in time where they're not here and not there either. So I do think they're opinionated. It's just that they tend to feel like, yes, now I can start to express myself when they're, 13, 14, and so on. But that is always there. I think making decisions is a different thing, of course, because this really depends on the kind of parenting they have had. If your parents always made all decisions for you, then that ability would develop much later. But I, for example, like even ever since I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, my mother would let me decide, like, what do you want to wear? Or like, let's say I'm going out to play, right? And I'm like, oh, I have to change my clothes, obviously. And so most kids at that age, they would just have their clothes picked out for them. Mom will be like, no, you'd have to pick out what skirt, what dress, what top, what shoes, what do you want? You decide, and you learn, for example, for example, let's say food, what do you want to eat? Those kinds of things. So, depends on the parenting style. A lot of parents don't push independence, they don't trust that this child is going to make the right decision, or, an appropriate decision, or at least not a non-bad decision. So there has to be that level of trust that, okay, let them make small decisions and then let them make big decisions. So that's how you kind of ease them into it. Just like, for example, when you give kids pocket money, right? You don't give them a huge amount, but you give them small amounts that increase with age or with, performance in school. So that's how you teach them that. Why do they start expressing their opinions at a certain age? Yeah, I think I kind of, like I was saying, I mean, when you're a kid, you are constantly being trained by your parents, by your teachers, by everyone around you to kind of tone yourself down, right? I mean, a kid will walk up to you and say, hey, your shirt is ugly. They don't care. Kids are mean. But obviously, society reacts and tells them, hey, don't do this, don't say that, this is not polite, this isn't good manners. And I think, of course, a kid is just going to listen to an adult because, that's all they know. That's what they've been taught, that, hey, you don't, talk back to an older person, you respect an older person, all that stuff. But as you grow older, you get more experience. And like I said, once you hit puberty, there's obviously mental, physical changes as well in your brain. And then you start to really question the world. I think that's where you get the ability to critically think. See, as a child, you will just believe. I mean, let's say you're like a 5, 6, 7-year-old child and your parent tells you, oh, you lost a tooth. So, just put your tooth under your pillow and the tooth fairy will come and, she'll give you like candy or some money or something, and you don't question it, you just believe it. And then there's something under your pillow and you wake up and you're like, oh my god, it was a tooth fairy, right? But obviously, as you grow older, you start to become more critical. Your reasoning skills change. Your brain is still, fine-tuning, it's still developing. In fact, the brain doesn't stop cooking, basically. The brain doesn't stop developing until it's 25, not even like that's a proper adult, but that's when your brain is fully done growing. So yeah, it's because they're physically developing, there's all these changes in their brain. They learn to really think critically, question things. And I think it's really important that teenagers are allowed to rebel. They should be allowed to be critical, to criticize things. And I don't think that the adults in their life should, take it personally. Let them, because this is when they really start to understand the world. Questioning things is healthy. It's not a negative thing. And I know in some cultures it's considered like, oh, an older person is automatically right, and anybody under 18, they basically think they're stupid or something, which is, obviously not the right thing to do. So I think they really deserve to have some more compassion for what they're going through. All right, well, that was the test for today. Don't forget to click on like if you enjoyed this or found some value from it. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. Please share this video with your friends or family who are also preparing for the IELTS. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.